Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are celebrating the release of a TV show that came out this week called Y: The Last Man.
Yeah.
And we're doing the first volume of that comic series, and it is called Unmanned, is the name of that volume.
I'm excited that we're doing this because this is actually a revisit for both of us because this is one Matt got me onto back when he was working at the comic book shop.
Yeah, back in the comic book shop days.
And he was like, "Oh man, you got to read this." And I was like, "It sounds weird, but it
sounds weird."
I don't know. It just sounded. I was like, "Okay, what?" I guess I do like post-apocalyptic things usually, so
right.
But
well,
yeah,
I don't know. To me, this doesn't sound weird at all. It just sounds like a comic book premise, like Last Guy on Earth or whatever.
I don't know. Well, either way, I ended up loving it. Like I think I don't remember if I finished it, but I know, like you were handing me.
It wasn't finished when you were.
Okay.
When you were reading it finished after or right before I left for school. So.
Well, I know I read a lot more of this than I've read like full series. So
yeah,
and it was really good. So I was excited to revisit it because it's been years since I picked it up.
Yeah, and then like I was excited because I just read the first omnibus, which was the first 30 issues. So yeah. I was like, oh, I'm already into this. And then the show dropped, and I watched the first 3 episodes of that, and those were like. Okay, and so I was like, okay, it'd be interesting to read.
Well, yeah,
I read it, and it's interesting to watch the show, being like, oh, I just read this, and
maybe I should have. I felt bad. I wanted to wait and like because I didn't know if you were going to watch it yet or not. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this. We'll talk about it, and then we would. But yeah, I should have watched it. We could have gone back and forth because I'm not a big spoiler guy, but Matt told me some little changes that were different from we'll talk about from this. And
yeah, we'll talk.
Sounds like very odd choices to make for character
So if you
development. Care
about show spoilers and you've read this comic before, then I guess be aware that we're gonna spoil stuff. This is a spoil podcast. We're literally telling you what happens in the first volume. So
that's true.
But just so you know, we are talking about the TV show too, since I watched that this week as well. So, but it's only the first 3 episodes, so it's not like spoiling the whole thing.
Yeah, and I was gonna say like if it's obviously now from reading the comic, if it's close and if whatever's close in the comic, I would already know, so it's not like it wouldn't be a huge spoil.
Exactly. So, anyway, you know what else is dated about this book? The this book blew me away cover thing is from Wizard Magazine.
Yeah. What
the fuck is Wizard Magazine? Anybody remember that?
I used to love those.
Yeah.
I had those, and I had the Toy Fair magazines with the little. Like basic, it was before Robot Chicken. They were doing paneled comic with
Robot Chicken. Basically.
Yeah, basically with action figures and shit.
Yes, so that's how old this trade is.
This is why God created comic books.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Whatever that website.
This book, okay, for reference, we'll just set this book up. Okay, this book came out in 2002. It is I'll say it's the first big hit that. Like some of these indie things had for a while. Like this is a Vertigo book, first off, which is DC's mature line. And Vertigo you might know because that was like the cool shit in the early 90s. That was in the late 80s. So that was, I think, officially the early 90s. But, you know, things that are considered Vertigo are all the British writers' stuff. So Sandman, which we read recently. Mm-hmm. Swamp Thing, which I'm reading right now with Alan Moore. You got... I think Watchmen's. No, I think Watchmen is under DC proper. What was it? Doom Patrol, Animal Man. All these like kind of side characters are all like they're like weird. We don't know what to do with these, and then the British people made them adult.
Yeah.
So like Doom Patrol and shit. Like we're gonna like sex and mature these things up a little bit, so that way you know. They're like the adult cool titles or whatever. So that's what it was in the 90s. Then like there was a lull in the late 90s and like early 2000s where nothing was really like hitting. Just kind of weird ideas and stuff, but nothing was really sticking. And then this book one brought like people back to Vertigo, be like, holy shit, they did a really good book. And then two, it was this specific writer named Brian K. Vaughan. It was his like really big first hit.
Yeah.
Because he had written like some of Swamp Thing that was going on, but it wasn't anything. No one gave a fuck about it. He had a couple other things that came out, but this was like his, holy shit, this guy's a good writer. Or at least at the time, everybody was considering that. And then like, it was also like, kind of like the first of the, I'll call this like the first of the like, hey, I'm a political person. I'm going to throw some politics in this, but it's not overwhelming or obtrusive necessarily. But like, well, you know where I stand in my politics on these books. So, okay. I mean, it's not the first book that's ever had that editing, obviously, because like Alan Moore is obviously left wing. You can tell that from Watchmen and things like that. But like, but this was like kind of the beginning of younger people starting to do that in comics more often. So at least that's how I remember it. I was like, okay, I remember. It's not just Walking Dead, you know, or like, you know, those, because those hit later. And those weren't Vertigo, their Image, but they're still like Walking Dead and Invincible. Those came out around the same time, but they weren't like as popular yet. And then also this book was the beginning of there being titles you could recommend that were from that were non-superhero that were good enough to be like recommended to anybody, and they would probably like it. And women specifically, it was like, do you want to read a book? You're just getting into comics? Well, here's the first volume of Y the Last Man. It is $10. You know, like, and it's about all the men dying. So if you're left wing, it's probably for you. You know, like, so.
Do you hate men?
Yeah. Well, that's the guise of this book is that it is like is this some like weird, and it makes people want to read it. Is it, if you're right wing, you go, what's this book about? Fucking, I gotta see
man hating trash.
Yeah. What is this? And then you read it, and you're like, oh, that's not what it's about at all. Yeah. and then if you're left wing and you read it, and you're like, oh, what is this? Like, it fully adheres to whatever I believe. You're like, oh no, it's just like a good story and everything. Oh, okay, cool. Like, I don't think about it politically. The most politics in this book are literally the very beginning of this book because just who his mom is and stuff. But otherwise, like, there's not too much political things other than just, I think back in the day, and this was something with this show as well. So the show, it's been, 20 years since this book came out?
Yeah.
So, you know, the premise of this book starts off with, like, if all the men die, then, like, there's not a lot of women engineers and there's not a lot of women in these fields. And I'm like, well, it's 20 years later now, and that show takes place nowadays. I'm like, I feel like there's a lot more women engineers and things now. Like, they really pushed STEM in the last 15 years for women and things like that. So I don't think, and like in this book, they have to go all the way down to like the Secretary of Education or whatever to get someone that's not a man in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Well, if all the men died now, it would just be Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Who would be the next line of president? It would be one down from the president. So it's not like, you know, and then, but after her, there's a lot of other people. There would be Nancy Pelosi, or, you know, like,
it's
so there's a lot of other women in this field than, you know, than there was prior or whatever, or in those positions than there was prior, at least 20 years ago. So the book kind of, I guess, worked. I don't know, what do you call it? Like, brought attention to this problem, and then. But now it wouldn't necessarily be it's not as applicable, or it's not as believable while I watch the show and they're like, there's only one nuclear physicist who's a woman. And I'm like, I don't think that's true anymore. So, in America, there's like in America specifically where they're at. But like, I'm like, I think there's more than that now. And there's also like female generals and stuff too. So they wouldn't have all died. But, yeah. But anyway, now that's like the thing. And then but that was interesting when I first started working in the comic book store. Like, you could be like right around this time you had Fables coming out, which we read. Y the Last
Vertigo
Man.
Too?
Yeah, it's Vertigo too.
Okay, yeah.
So Vertigo was like, let's try to lean into these other, they would have been Image books previously, I think. But they're like, let's get some new blood. We're not just writing a Swamp Thing or Sandman again. We're going to do new characters or new story arcs with new writers that, or at least tested writers that have good ideas or whatever, and that are more for a general audience, not just a DC superhero audience, because there's no superheroes in this book.
Yeah.
So, and same with Fables. There's no superheroes in that book. Although they're doing a crossover with Batman and Bigby somehow. I don't know. That's coming out now.
Oh, interesting.
Whatever. They're bringing it into the DCU now. But I mean, I guess there are fables or fairy tales in DC, right? They tell their children some kind of tales.
Yeah.
Right. So, but just in general, they're not superhero books. So you could bring someone who'd never read a comic. Generally, that would be, at least for me, is trying to sell stuff. Would be women would come in and say, "Hey, I want to read comics. I've never read a comic, but I saw X on TV. I saw X-Men or something, and it seemed cool or whatever. But where the fuck do you start with X-Men?
I don't even know where to tell someone to start with X-Men.
So I just go, okay, but do you like superheroes? Like, what's your favorite genre of movies and stuff? Then they tell you, oh, I like action or post-apocalyptic or horror or whatever. And then from there, I would go, then you would probably like Fables or Why the Last Man or one of these other titles, because there's nowhere to fucking start with some of those older series. Like, where do I start if I say I like Batman? Well, I mean, I could give you, you could always go Dark Knight, but that's still not traditional Batman.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So,
I don't think I would start anybody else.
No, that wouldn't be my first Batman to start someone.
I love it.
You'd be like, I like the animated series. You'd be like, well, maybe you stick with that. Like, so yeah, it was kind of one of these. It was perfect when it came out as a salesperson in like a comic store, because I could be like, bam, I got what you need, and it pretty much covered every base. Like, I don't think there was many people that I can't think of anybody who ever came back into the store and was like, I didn't like that.
I didn't like this book.
Yeah, you got anything else? I didn't really dig it. So, so that's like the premise for this book. It is from 2002. It was kind of the new uprising of Vertigo from the past that it had kind of gotten stale, and this was like the new blood kind of thing. So that is the setup for this book. And like I said, it starts off pretty much right away, the first page. It says New York, Brooklyn, now. And there's a lady covered in blood, and she's like, something's wrong. And then she goes into a cop, and the cop's like out of her. She's not doing anything. She's like, what? It's just, there's nothing I can do. It's the men. And then she just pulls out a gun and shoots herself. And that's where we find out basically all the men have died on the first page. But they don't go into it yet. They cut back 29 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I like how they do it. You catch them on the first page, and then, okay, what happens prior to that kind of thing. I
like the lead up to it, because it
builds tension.
Yeah, it builds a good tension.
Yeah. No. So we cut to 29 minutes later in Brooklyn, and guess what? There's our main character, Yorick. That's why one of the reasons why it's called Y the Last Man. Obviously, Y chromosome,
yeah.
Y the Last Man, and then Y as in this dude's name is Yorick. And so he is a magician, or a struggling wannabe magician. He's just, I think he's talking. Is he talking on the phone at the beginning, or is he just talking to himself? I can't remember. But
no, he's talking on the phone.
Okay, yeah,
he's talking to Beth.
Yeah, that's right. He's talking to Beth on the phone. He's talking to his girlfriend Beth, and he's just like upside down, hanging like from a weight bar or like a pull-up bar, basically in a doorway, and he's trying to do like a what's it called?
The Houdini straitjacket.
Yes, there you go.
Escape.
And it's not going too well. But he's basically he's like not a failed magician, but he's like, he just doesn't have anything going. I mean, it was a magician. How successful can you be at the beginning? Unless you're Penn and Teller. Or David Blaine.
Yeah, and you've been doing it already.
Yeah, like you what career path is that? So he's on the phone with his girlfriend. He's telling her, all this stuff about what's going on in his life, and she is in Australia. She's running around in the outback. I don't know what she's doing in the outback. She's just running around. That's all we see her doing. She's kind of just like, at least in these images on the page, like,
yeah, she's legitimately like
just literally running on rocks.
Through trail or on. Yeah,
but I think she's there for archaeology, she's looking through Aboriginal paintings and stuff, and that's why they're there to like study that stuff. But she, is running around in the outback just for funsies, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so while she talks to him, I don't know what kind of phone she's got that can, and in 2002 that could talk to you or whatever, a cell phone with that kind of signal in the middle of the outback to all the way Nextel. Yeah, there you go. One of those bricks. Or whatever,
exactly.
It's $1 a minute.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. But, this would have been super long distance, too. He's on a landline phone calling Australia, cell phone in the middle of the outback.
Expensive phone call.
That's an expensive phone call for sure. So, anyway, he's talking to her. She's like, did you get your job? He's like, no, I didn't. He's just, nothing's working out for him. But he, in the middle of that, he puts her on hold for a second. Once again, this is an expensive phone call.
Who puts on hold because he gets another incoming call?
Yeah.
They'll
I
call.
I know. Yeah. But I was going to say, because his mom's calling.
His mom.
So then we find out, okay, they do this obviously because we're introducing all the main characters. So turns out his mom is a congresswoman, and she's a liberal congresswoman, and she's having trouble with the president, who is somewhat right wing, and they have like a little tit for tat back and forth.
Congresswoman Jennifer Brown.
Yeah, and so basically they just set up like she's liberal or left wing for 2002, and he's right wing for 2002, and that's kind of the setup. That's it. And then they have like, she doesn't back down though. You see like she's a strong senator woman. So
how's Beth? She's like, I'm on the phone with her on the other line. What do you need, Mom?
Exactly. And so he goes back talking to Beth, and then that's where we find out he's got a monkey, because the monkey starts throwing shit at him. The monkey's name is Ampersand.
Not literal poop. He's throwing like stuff on.
Yes, I'm sorry. Literal shit. Yes, it is a monkey. I should clarify.
Only because it is a monkey, to clarify. It's a little kombucha monkey.
Yes,
very cute.
Yes. So it is named Ampersand, like the and symbol.
Yeah.
On Turner and Hooch, and so yeah. I mean that he's just doing that because it's a helper monkey. He's training it like as a job.
Yeah.
It's like a side job he's got where he just takes a monkey and trains it to help you out, and then they give it back to someone. Hopefully was trained well.
I thought he was going to train it to like help with his magic.
No, I think it's literally. I think it's like a program like you can train the monkeys for these people, and then they can sell them as helper monkeys or whatever. That's what I thought it was.
Okay.
I never got that it was his helper monkey. Why would he need a helper monkey?
As part of a magic act. I don't know. That's what I thought.
Just for magic?
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, no.
You need an assistant, right? Well, hey, how cool is it if you have a monkey assistant?
I think it's because he says like, I applied for him is what he says.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I thought. And to me, that means it's a business, a separate thing you have to get. It's not for applying for a magic monkey.
No, I know. I didn't
apply to the government. Why do you want this monkey, sir, for my magic act?
Okay, yes, I know. I felt like it was he applied for that, but then that's what he wants to ultimately use him for. But that's just
no. I think he's going to give it back, having trained him for someone who's disabled that needs a monkey to help them.
I don't know many monkey assistant government programs.
I don't know. There was that lady who used to give her monkey Xanax and wine, and it ripped her friend's face off. Remember that?
That's true. That's the only one I know.
That was a chimpanzee.
That program is no longer.
Yeah. that was Ampersand later on. Later Ampersand. Oh man. Anyway, sorry about that lady. That was one of the scariest. That's one of the most horrible stories. Yeah. If you want to scare yourself real bad, go listen to that audio on YouTube, and then also look at pictures. Actually, there's an interview with her on Oprah, I think, of the lady who got her face and hands and fingers ripped off and shit from this chimp, because chimps are fucking
and terrifying. You should not have them as pets.
No, don't have them as pets. You're crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, let that thing free. It needs to live in the forest. Like Caesar.
It was, but not like Caesar here in America. Yeah, we know how that goes.
So, anyway, he's talking to his girlfriend, and right as he's like, "I got something to tell you. It's something important. I'm going to, propose to you." Or he asks her, "Hey, will you marry me?" She's like, "What?" And then shit goes down. But first, we cut to the West Bank, of course, because this is right after 9/11.
Yeah.
So the political intrigue in this is not about any of. There's no Trump. There's none of that shit. It's just the war and the Middle East and that kind of intrigue. So in the Middle East, you have the Israelis fighting. There's like Israeli special forces fighting other people in there, and I don't know. It just kind of goes back and forth with that kind of thing. Just introduces the idea that this is what's going on in the Middle East and it's important. And then we also get introduced to in the Middle East the other main character in this, like the other side main character,
Agent 355.
Agent 355. She works for the Culper Ring, who's like, we'll say it's the CIA's CIA.
Yeah, it's like the secret CIA.
It's the Masons inside of the CIA. All right, it's the Illuminati's backup service. All right, so she is like a badass, basically, detective or not detective, special forces, and she is here in Jordan. I don't know, like trying to get an amulet that does something. I don't know.
I guess, this was a little weird.
It's a little convoluted, but basically, it'd be like if they were like, this lady has half of, it's like Indiana Jones. There's a relic that we want, and, this lady has it, and we need to bring her in because someone else is looking for it. And it has something to do with if, like, the bad guys get it, they will combine the two halves and they'll be best friends forever or something. Like, so, like, yeah, it's a weird whatever. I don't know. It's some political intrigue that I'm not sure.
I don't know. To be honest, we never come back to it in this.
Exactly. It never really comes back or matters at all because as she's trying to help this lady escape with the thing and the lady's not cooperating, God damn it, terrorists break in and start blowing her away with a fucking machine gun, and 355 takes her gun and shoots those people, and then everybody's dead, and she's like, great, great. Then she gets assigned to the president. Like, you have to come back to the United States for something. So, like we said, and I forgot, and then also right at that moment that he's about to tell her he's proposing, Boston, Massachusetts, there's a woman giving birth. Her name is Dr. Mann. And they're like, wait, who's the father? And she's like, I am a geneticist, and I made this baby and impregnated myself. It is actually not made from any male chromosomes or whatever, but, so, like, there's no male DNA or whatever. It's just two of, I don't know. I don't remember where she got the DNA from, but basically, it's her DNA twice or some shit. So she's trying to do basically illegal experiments on herself, I guess. So because no one else is, she can't do it to someone else. So she is about to have a baby, and she's the father. Then, same instant, we get introduced to the sister of said hero Yorick.
Hope.
Her name is Hope. Yes. And she is a EMT, and she is in this. She's just kind of like, I like to fuck guys, and
yeah, I mean that's
about it.
We get introduced to her like getting it on with some firefighter.
Yeah, firefighter.
And they're like, "Hey, we got a call. We gotta go." It's like, "Oh, okay, we'll finish this later."
Yeah. So she's just like, a normal woman who's like having fun with her life. She's just an EMT. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. And like we said, Yorick then proposes, and at that moment, all of these things are happening at the same time that we said, like the woman giving birth. 355 is flying back to America.
With another male pilot?
Yes. And then, everybody's got like males with them. So the woman giving birth has a male doctor and a male, assistant or whatever. I don't know, her male assistant. And then, 355 has a male pilot. Then on the West Bank in Israel, we have the Israeli special forces that we were talking about.
There's a female general, and then she has, I guess,
a male reporter, I think.
Her reporter.
He's just being annoying and bothering her. And then we have, in Washington, we see his mom, and then Yorick. So, 3, 2,
1.
All the men die. Everybody who's a man in those panels starts vomiting blood all over everybody.
Vomiting blood coming out of their eyes. It's actually really intense and cool looking on the page.
It's basically like if that's what rat poison is. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
It just makes you bleed from everywhere.
Internal, I think.
No, not internally. Everywhere.
Oh, just
out of your eye, wherever there's a hole.
You have blood.
You're gonna have blood coming out.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Basically, just makes it so your skin ain't skin anymore. Like it don't hold nothing in.
Gosh.
So, yeah. So this is kind of what would happen if everybody got rat poisoned all of a sudden
At the same
time. But yeah, all the men die. This is where you see like this is like I'll say this is the political stance of this book is so all men die. What does that mean? And then we cut to the Tokyo Stock Exchange. It's all men. We cut to St. Peter's, Vatican City. That's all men.
Yeah.
In Idaho, all the farmers, it's all men. But we also see the cows.
Male cow
or the bulls.
The bulls die.
All the bulls are dead. And so it's not just human men, it's
all Y chromosome.
All Y any animal with a Y chromosome all died. So we go to like the Netherlands and there's a brothel and there's all the men are dead. All the men that are there as the Johns dead, or whatever are dead. Same with like everybody. They just cut to all these places where a lot of them are male dominated places, and it's all men. They're all dead. Nuclear power plants, important things that keep society running or whatever.
All male run
are all male run at this moment, or at least a majority.
Showing
so.
Seemingly.
That's what I said. Like that. That's kind of the political conceit that you agree with in this. Like I said, I think that fairly was, the case in 2002, because then I remember there was a big push in like the late 2000s, early 2010s
for equality
not equality. I'm talking about STEM, women in STEM.
Yeah.
So like, we need to have more women in STEM, and so I think all of that's kind of come to fruition.
But also for women to have like get into the higher positions, like we saw. Like, more women CEOs, more women in like those higher ranking jobs.
Right, there was a push for that too, but I'm just saying in STEM specifically because that's like a big point of this. Is like a lot of the engineer and pilots and things like that aren't women. So if you're trying to get those positions open, then those people in those positions, you have to kind of push for them to get STEM going and stuff. So, I think now this kind of, I'm not going to say it's moot. Like obviously. Always do better or whatever, but I'm saying I think it's not it wouldn't be as detrimental necessarily if all the men. I mean, it would be terrible if all the men died, but if all of anybody died. But like the like, oh well, what are we gonna do? Factor wouldn't necessarily be as bad.
Wouldn't be quite as impactful. Yeah, gotcha.
So
that makes sense.
Me and Mel were talking about this, and I'm like, well, what they don't have though? There's all the garbage men. And the people that work in the sanitary plants, there ain't no women there. So all the women got the high-paying, high-STEM jobs, not the high-paying, low-STEM jobs. No one wants to work with shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a lot of those jobs still are like oil riggers. There's no, that's gonna still be a problem.
Very few, if any. That's true.
Divers. Oil rig divers, like those kind of people who risk their lives in a mine or whatever. That's going to be still all men probably. But so those things, obviously you need coal to burn for a lot of the power plants or at least oil to run things or whatever. So a lot of those questions would still be an issue, I think. But yeah, so we were talking about that because she was like, what kind of job do you think now would be affected? I'm like, I think that would be the biggest thing now. But yeah, so all the men die. And that's kind of like the end of the first issue. Like it just ends with you hear bang because the woman's about to kill herself, and the policewoman from the first page is killing herself, and then it was outside of Yorick's apartment, and you hear and Yorick goes hello because the phone goes dead right as he asks, "Will you marry me?"
And so he never got his answer.
He never gets his answer from Beth, and that's the cliffhanger it leaves. Like, what happened? But he's not dead. He's not throwing up. He's not, and his monkey isn't either. So, but all the other men did. Like, what the fuck? So, and we should also say the art is by the wonderful Pia Guerrera. She does the entire series, which is very rare for nowadays. So, I don't know why, but to have a set of creators do a run of comics and finish it is a very rare thing nowadays. So, we need more of that to come back because
when you have that consistency,
the consistency across it, even if you have a couple fill-ins or something, it's not that big of a deal. But like, or at least one writer at least on the same thing. But you can't switch artists that look completely different halfway through it, or like halfway through the first arc or whatever,
Yeah.
like, so, unless it's like Sandman where like it changes, but it changes because the world looks different or whatever because of the guy's gemstone or whatever. So like that kind of thing makes sense. But yeah, so that's the first issue of Why the Last Man. And we move on. It's 2 months later now. DC Yorick is now, he's got his monkey carrier where Ampersand hangs out in, and then he's got like a it's like a raincoat with like a gas mask on that he has to walk around in because, he's a guy and he's the only guy, so he's kind of valuable, or at least he's.
I'm sure he's had some unique, weird run-ins.
Yes, I'm sure, and one of them happens right now because someone, it seems, almost hits him or tries to hit him with a garbage truck. It turns out it's a lady who's like collecting all the dead bodies. Then she like realizes that he's a man, and like makes him take off his mask or whatever. Or actually, I guess what happens is the monkey gets out and pulls the mask
off. Yeah.
So then she's like, "Oh my God, you're a man." And at first you're thinking, "Oh, are they gonna like flirt or whatever?" Like we don't know exactly what this writer was going for necessarily. Because I would say this: a lot of men might have this same book, but it goes a little different way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like he just fucks everybody all the time.
I'm the only man left. I guess I know what we have to do.
Yeah, I always wish I'd die from snoo. So yeah, it could go that way. So he kind of plays with that idea when he meets his first woman after 2 months, and she's like, "Oh, you're a real man," and so she actually grabs his junk like to check or whatever.
She's like, barely a man,
right? And so, how you gonna make fun of him? He's the last guy. Come on. But then she like pulls out a gun and is like, "Yeah, get inside the truck. I'm gonna take you and sell you because you're worth money." He's like, "Motherfucker." So she handcuffs him, and then she's talking to him as she's like going around, and he escapes because he's, of course, a magician, and he's got handcuffs. He can escape from handcuffs. So it turns out he's been trying to get to his mom, obviously. So he goes to Washington, D.C., where she is at the White House, I guess.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Why would you be at the White House, though?
Well, I assume they just kind of were like,
I guess. In my mind, I was like, they're in the Pentagon or something. And then it was like, oh, I guess they were at the White House. I don't know. I didn't see where they were in the last issue or whatever, but I guess it was the White House.
I think they were like outside of Congress, the last one. But even still, like,
I've never been to D.C., so I don't know where these things are in relation to each other.
They're just right next door.
Is the White House next to the Pentagon? I wouldn't think so.
No, they're spread out.
That's what I figured. So that's why I was like, okay, but maybe they all moved to the White House just for funsies. There is a big fence around it, so maybe that's why.
Well, I think it may be partially because, like I said, like you're kind of like taking, they're consolidating the power at this point, with the other people that have died and whatnot.
Yeah.
And like they said, I think if 355 finds like who technically is next in line to become president.
Yeah. While this is going on, 355's like, I actually found the real president later on, and she comes back with her. But the in the meantime, Yorick's mom has actually taken like presidential control because she was like the next in line after you go down 20 people or whatever.
Yeah.
Of everybody they could find at least, and then. So he comes in and he sneaks in and he goes right behind his mom. He's like, "Boy, security's really gone to shit since all the men died." And then she like freaks out and flips him over her shoulder, and then realizes, "Oh my God, it's Yorick!" And she's like, "How are you alive?" He's like, I don't know how I'm alive, but it was amazing. Basically, it's some miracle, but like it fucking sucks also. So. Like,
Dad isn't alive, is he? Is it maybe a chromosome thing? And she's like, "Nah, he dead."
Nah, he's dead. It's not like it's not like our family is immune for some weird fucking reason.
Well, I mean, that would be an interesting thing too. Then we'd be like, "Oh, it is genetic in this family." Somehow.
Potentially, yeah. But I think later on they say that what they float halfway through the book is that maybe the Ampersand had some
Yorick fucked the monkey, and
yes, as you know, Yorick.
How does any disease start? Well, this is a disease that happened to protect the. And
it did both.
It did, yeah.
It gave the first person who fucked the monkey not AIDS.
And then gave exploding AIDS to all the other men.
That's not where AIDS came from, people. It's a horrible 80s rumor. But anyway, so basically he scares his mom. She's like, holy shit. And then he's like, I have to go find Beth. And she's like, no. And he's like, but we're engaged. And she's like, you proposed? He's like, kinda. Like, I mean...
I'm sure she was going to say yes.
Yeah, like I didn't hear what she said, but I'm almost sure I heard a Y starting in her voice as the phone gave out or whatever. So, basically, she's just like, he's like, I need to get to her, and she's like, no, because like you're an asset now, and I have to protect you now that I know you're alive. I'm not going to let my son now go across the country with. She knows what's been going on. There's been crazy shit going on. Where like factions are breaking out and all this kind of thing, and it's not just like everybody's like kumbaya, like that's not what's happening on the streets. So that's another thing that I think is interesting. One, like I said, this is not a right or left wing book, even though our author is probably left wing. The premise isn't all the men die and the world is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's what it would be now if it was written nowadays or something. Like, all right, let's calm down a little bit. That I like that they're like, okay, it's all the men have died and this is what's going on for real in the country. These things are shutting down. What actually happens is she's like, we need you. We need to find this doctor named Dr. Mann, who was the woman giving birth to herself, her own genetic material or whatever, because she can study whatever the fuck's going on with you.
Yeah.
And all we need to do is find her, kind of thing. And so then we get like gunshots and shit ringing out on the Capitol, and she's like, "Get down!" or on the building that they're in, and
White House being attacked, and he's like terrorists, and she's like worse.
Republicans, which is why I said the beginning is there is definitely a lean in this book, but I feel like that's like their little shots, like little pot shots.
Yeah, they're little
but
ribs.
It's not the main point of the book or whatever. Yeah, it's not like I said, if it was the main point of the book, they would open the gate and there would just be like everybody's wearing flowers, and it's fantastic. So. Yeah, that's not what happened. When they open the door, there's like cars strewn everywhere and everything looks terrible, and they're trying to figure out how to create society again, kind of thing. So, but yeah, basically, like you said, he's like, what are those terrorists? And she's like, no, worse, Republicans. And so it turns out all the wives and family members that are left, the women of presidents, senators that were ahead of Yorick's mom in line to be president are like, fuck you.
We should get their jobs because we're family, and then we should be
right. And I was there the whole time anyway, giving them ideas and shit or whatever. And then like you weren't elected, which I think is a fair point. She's not elected to be president, but neither are they. So I mean, like the idea would be we need to hold elections, but you can't do that until it's stable enough to do so. So I'm like, well, I guess you'd have to keep her or whoever in place. So. But yeah, basically, these Republican women have kind of come to claim the presidency for themselves, I guess, or at least have some kind of representation for themselves in the cabinet or something under Yorick's mom. And so she's got to hide Yorick away while this is going on. And there is a couple people people know him about him now. Like a couple people see her. Hide him and shit. So that comes into play later. But as Yorick's mom goes to talk to them, there ends up being kind of a little shootout where one of the ladies had, and this is like, it's called finger control, people, right? Like someone had a gun to a person's head, and then like it goes off on accident. I killed that person on accident, and then she gets shot and killed by the president's side, and then it's like.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. And it's like, it was an accident. It's like, all right, fingers off the trigger unless you're actually going to shoot someone in the face. So, but basically, there's kind of a big shootout. And Yorick, of course, being the escape artist he is, he's like David Blaine in this motherfucker. He's behind like what looks like a bank vault door. And he's able to figure out how to get out of there. So he gets out, and then out of nowhere, this big garbage truck comes and gets through the gate and like stops the shootout that's happening. And it turns out it's 355, and 355 has the actual woman who's in charge, who's the next line. I don't know. Who is she? Is she like just
She was a secretary of something.
Okay.
But her name is Margaret Valentine.
Yeah. So basically she's like, I'm the president now, and don't worry about it, I'll take over. And then they're arguing like, no, you're not elected either. None of you are presidents. And then all of a sudden we hear, in the words of Thomas Jefferson, that's bullshit. And because Yorick is an idiot in this, so basically he's a dumb 26-year-old kid or whatever.
Yeah.
So he says that, and then everybody sees, oh my God, a man, and that kind of puts everybody like stops everybody's arguing, and then she's like, it's my son. His mom is like, God damn it, like you're an idiot. 1, for saying that. 2, you're an idiot for leaving the bunker. 3, you're an idiot. What the fuck? Like, why are you revealing yourself to people? But yeah, basically, he reveals himself, and the president gets put in charge of things above her mom, or his mom now. So now his mom's not president. And then they all decide that what's going to happen is we need to get Dr. Mann, and we need her to test on Yorick, and then Yorick can go do whatever the fuck he wants with Beth. But 355 is going to protect him, because 355 is
she's working the best at what she does.
She's the best at what she does. God damn it! And so and then we cut to Israel, and we see that Israel Special Forces. Well, I think the lady that saw Yorick earlier was a double cross or double agent, because someone reports that there is a man named Yorick Brown who is alive in Washington. So the Israelis know, they send these special force ladies there, and that is the end of that issue. So, yeah. Then we get like, I don't know, like there's a couple issues in this that is like, it's just kind of setting a mood or a tone. It doesn't really push the story forward. But this is kind of one of those ones where like, it's more about Yorick and how he's dealing with shit, because he's not dealing with it good, like, he's walking with 355, and it's been like a week now or something probably. Yeah. They don't say the time frame 100%, but like basically they're just talking about kind of like politics stuff with her, and like exactly who she does, and she's getting to know him and all that kind of stuff.
And you kind of see their dynamic, like he's very goofy and like you said, kind of idiot, and she's she's very straight laced and like, God, you're an idiot. Like,
yeah, well, it's like, okay, I'm a person. They're almost the same. They look very much within 5 years of each other as far as age wise.
Yeah,
she is a special forces agent. He is a magician who didn't have a job, whose parents probably paid for his apartment and shit. So like, it's kind of like that's the dynamic. Is you're a dumb fuck who wants to find your girlfriend. Who what the fuck are you gonna do when you find her? The world is shit now. So like, what's going to happen? Who knows? And then she's probably not even alive, because she was in the middle of the outback when all this happened too. Yeah. He doesn't even know she's alive. So
I did like there's a Paul Simon joke. So they're talking and she's like, whatever, I'm not your, I'm only here to make sure that, you basically make it. And he's like, well, hey, if you'll be my bodyguard, you can call me Al.
Yeah. She's like, I hate Paul Simon.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm more of a Garfunkel guy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, basically, they have this like, back and forth attitude with each other. It's fun. I mean, the dynamic is good.
Yeah, it's building a good.
He's an idiot. Like, honestly, I mean, I don't take it as a slight. Like, I don't think he's trying to say like all men are idiots or some shit, but just this specific man, the way he is, what his life is, he's just kind of that aimless 20-something, you know? And so like, but they're walking through like where the Capitol building is now. With the monument.
Monuments, yeah. And like, I guess by the Washington Monument, they've started to make a monument to all the men who have gone.
Yeah, there's just women there like wailing, like crying at this monument. And she says the reason why they picked that monument is because it's a big dick, obviously.
Big phallic symbol.
So phallic symbol. That's a deep cut for anybody who likes The Wicker Man with I don't know if it's in the original, but I think it's
I mean, we know it's
definitely
in the Nick Cage
version. So, yeah. So all these women are sad and everything, and they're talking about, who's your favorite, who do you miss the most, and all that stuff. And he's walking around. He wants to talk to them and just see. He's walking around with his mask on now, because before he wasn't. Before he was just talking to 355 with his mask off, which I think is kind of weird that she would let him do that, but I guess it's so the streets are so sparse that it's not a big deal. But,
yeah.
But yeah, so all of them, or he's talking to all these women, but specifically one he's talking to about like bands and stuff, like, oh, who do you miss the most, and all that kind of stuff.
She's like, I missed, of all my family that died, I miss Mick Jagger. I miss Mick Jagger the most. They're like, and she's like, oh no, I just really miss the Stones. Like they're all dead.
Yeah. I don't care about the family that died. And so then you hear like motorcycles rev up, and this is where we get like the first like, oh, it's not like Kumbaya all the time, besides the Republicans, right?
Yeah.
So we have these women ride up, and they look, let's call them butch.
And they call them the Amazons.
The Amazons, yeah. And so they're women who have cut off one of their breasts, because that's what apparently Amazons like. When we say Amazon, we mean like Wonder Woman Amazons, because they have arrows and shit. They shoot bows and arrows, and to shoot bow and arrow easier, they cut off the side that they would have to pull back on.
Yeah.
Ergo, it's like a big deal to become an Amazon. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's like you're committed. You got to cut your tit off. Doesn't sound fun. At least one of them. So like, yeah. And so these women are of the, I don't know. They all have hairstyles that are nowadays fine. We'll put it that way. But in 2002, so like everybody's got the shaved Rihanna hair, or like the just completely bald, or a faux hawk or whatever. It's just shit like, oh yeah, that's normal hair nowadays. But at the time, I think it was like, it would be look at those crazy ladies. So, but yeah, so they're going through the camp. They're like, get out of here, you stupid women. All the men are dead, and that's
good
fine.
riddance,
yeah. And basically, they're all just harassing the women that are sad, because they're sad that the men died, and they're trying to spread their propaganda of, there are oppressors, and it's good that they're dead, and how dare you cry for them, and all that kind of stuff. And then Yorick gets pissed off because he sees them for the first time, and he goes up to them and he takes his fucking hat off. Now, I thought this was kind of unbelievable. The only people who see him, I mean, we're talking like there were hundreds of people at this monument, and the Amazon scared all of them away before he pulled his mask off.
I guess so.
But he approaches them with his mask off and is like, I'm a fucking man, and you're a fucking, and they're like, you're not a man. Like, they're all dead. We've seen, I guess what there are now are, they don't say this in the book because this wasn't a topic back then, but obviously they're trans men, and then specifically they talk about men who dress as women.
Women who dress as men.
I'm sorry, yeah. Women who dress as men for sex, like to be like sex workers for the women now. Like they dress like them, just not because they are trans, but just because it's like like I said, like sex work, or maybe it is because they're trans too. But they don't specifically bring up trans in this book, like they do in the show now. Because in the show they talk about it directly. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because that was a controversial thing in this. It's like, you can't say all the men died or all the males died. You have to say all the Y chromosome animals died or whatever. Yeah. So, which is more accurate in this, at least too. So, but yeah, they don't have trans men specifically in this, other than the ones that are like sex workers who are now presenting as men so that they will get sex work.
Gotcha.
So for the heterosexual women that now there's a market for that. So, not that there wasn't before, but no. You know what I'm saying. Yeah.
But the Amazons are like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're not
what
a man.
the fuck? And so then they automatically start beating the shit out of him.
Like, we're gonna rectify that then. That you're
they're like, we're gonna kill you because we don't want you around, and like you won't be able to oppress us ever again, kind of thing. So they start attacking him with like knives and shit, and he's able to spray paint one in the face and get kind of. I mean, he gets a little bit on them, but there's 4 of them and 1 of him, so they hold him down. They're about to slit his throat, and then 355 shows up and just hits the one with the knife in the face, but like without even. She's like, no, nothing in her hand, no weapon or anything. She just the panel is her standing still, and then panel with fist up, and then the lady's on the ground. So you're like, she was like, "Huzzah!" Like Bruce Lee style, just like, holy shit. So the other women run away when they see that. So, and they're all like, well, we have to go tell whoever our leader or whatever is that there's a man. So 355's like, you fucking idiot. I left you for like 10 minutes because Ampersand got away. That's actually why like Yorick split off, because they're like, oh, Ampersand ran away or whatever. So like, but yeah, she's able to catch him and then brings him back and sees Yorick being a fucking idiot, showing himself to the most dangerous people in this book probably up until this point. And so, yeah. So basically, now they have motorcycles, but now we see at the Baltimore Convention Center, the women come back from that, the Amazons come back from that fight, and now they're telling the head woman named Victoria that, hey, there is a man, he is alive, and then they're like, well, who will go, kill this man in honor of like us Amazons and everything? And who steps forward to say they will? But
I will go. I am
Hero Brown, Yorick's sister.
Yep.
She has cut off one of her boobs and is fully involved in this.
She's joined the sisterhood of Amazons.
Of Amazonians. And so so she doesn't know it, but she's after her brother because they didn't know his name. They didn't remember his name or anything. And so that's like the big like what's gonna happen, and this thing is like, oh, his sister's bad, and then like Yorick is being an idiot all the time and revealing himself at inopportune moments, and then so Yorick, he's everybody's going through PTSD right now. Yorick is also having PTSD. He's having fucked up dreams. He just wants to go see Beth, and she is, dead maybe. He doesn't know. He
has no idea.
So he's just having dreams. Whenever he goes to sleep, dreams of Beth and her being dead or dying or bleeding out
or having blood come out of all of her orifices. Yeah.
Not that there's a reason for that, but it's probably just your dreams mixing up shit. And so they're in Boston now. They've traveled all the way from DC to Boston, which is a fairly good trek. But they had motorcycles.
They had motorcycles for part
now. They're heading to go get Dr. Mann, like we said. That's where Dr. Mann is in Boston. And but in the meantime, we cut back to Victoria, the Amazonian leader. And they are now, like I said, on the hunt for this man. So they're tracking him. They're in Connecticut. And they catch a girl who supposedly knew or saw a guy on a motorcycle or some shit. And so, like, where is he? He's like, fuck you, you Amazon bitch or whatever. Like, I don't agree with what you're doing. She spits on Victoria, and Hero is with her. Hero's like the bodyguard of Victoria. She's got a gun to her head, and she's like, kill her. And Hero's like, without even questioning, just kills her right in front of her. And it's like, okay. So, like, that's how they're trying to show, like, Hero's, like, in this
she is
cult.
all in.
Yeah, she's all in. So, but then we cut to Boston now, and Yorick and 355 are breaking in to Dr. Mann's laboratory. And it turns out that Yorick is actually able to pick locks and stuff, too. So he actually makes himself useful sometimes with his magic skills in this new world. But he breaks in. They find Dr. Mann, who tries to attack them because obviously she's like, who the fuck are you? And they're like, no. We got the man. We got a man. We got a monkey man. And we got a man.
A man, a monkey man. And
yeah. And so
man.
She's like, oh, my God. Like, we have to, we got to figure this out. She actually thinks that she caused the plague because of her like, tampering with God or whatever, tampering with nature. So she thinks that, like, when her baby was born, which is technically true, like, the second her baby was born and it was stillborn, it like that released the virus because then all the men in the operating room died and then all the men in the world died. So she thinks that she's having PTSD from that. The only one not having PTSD is 355.
She's just like
I'm a stone cold killer all the time. So, So Dr. Mann's like, oh my God, I can't believe there's an actual man, and they're about to like start getting blood and stuff because she's like, I have to get blood. Like we're gonna do tests here or whatever. And Ampersand, wants to start with the monkey because maybe that probably has a higher thing for like transmutability to other species and stuff. And so he sees the needle and he's like, needles. He knows what that is. No. Fuck that. So he runs away. And goddamn monkey. I always during the series, that's like their like how to get out of jail free card of like, why would we go elsewhere? That monkey got away.
Oh, the monkey got away. So.
Happens. I will say that is one of the few not annoying, but like tropey things in this book. Is like, how do we move to the next? How do we get them out of this place into the next? Oh,
the monkey gets away.
Monkey got away. Someone finds it. They meet them. Ergo, they go somewhere else. Or whatever. So, but yeah, they get out of that place trying to get the monkey, and then it's like 4 hours later, and then you hear, "Shalom." So it's the Israeli women, the Israeli special forces. They have finally got all the way to America from Israel. It's been, I don't know, a couple months or whatever now. So, and they go, I don't know how they knew to go to Dr. Mann, other than maybe that lady heard Yorick and there's a geneticist named Dr. Mann that is in Boston. Or they were able to figure it out eventually. But they go and they see, there's been like a fight or a scuffle in here because like, at the beginning, Dr. Mann was fighting them. And they're like, well, we don't know what she's found or what she's done yet, but no one's in the place yet right now. So like, let's just burn everything. So then it's like 6 hours later.
They finally caught the monkey.
Yeah, they're bringing him back. And I don't know why they didn't see this earlier because it's a giant light in the middle of the city. But the whole building is burned down as they're walking towards the lab. And like, oh my God. She's like, all my samples, all my
research,
information,
everything.
All my research was in that lab. And he's like, well, don't you have like a cloud or something? He didn't call it a cloud.
A backup.
But it is a cloud because she's like, oh, that actually uploads to the server in California. So if I'm going to get that information, I won't have the samples, but I'll at least have the data so I can test your stuff against them. So that's like the premise of what they're going to do. They're like, okay, now we're going to California, and that's on the way, for Yorick to get to Australia. He's like, okay, well, we'll go to California with you. I'll help you there, and that's like the end of the book. Basically, we just leave it. He's going to California.
Yeah. I did like the last page. It's a fun like splash page of them in the middle
of three streets.
Combining, so it's a fork in the road. They have to go a different way, but it's also a big Y. So that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of cool art stuff like that in this book. Yeah. Like the artist does a good job of like using the environment to like, put little hidden things like that. Not hidden because that's obviously it, but clever things like that. But I mean that's basically the first premise or the original premise of this book is just these first 5 issues, and it's like a simple premise, but I will say this book reads really fast. It's really fun.
And it gets more like intense and like there's some really fun.
I'll say this when I first once the Amazons are involved and things like that, it gets more like to me more interesting because the political intrigue that they set up at the beginning, I'm kind of like I don't give a fuck about any of that because like it's kind of solved right away. Like now his mom's not the president, so we don't need to worry about her. It's some other lady, and then now we got Israelis after him, and then. But like within 3 books, it gets pretty like, oh, what's this? Like, what's going on here? Or whatever. Yeah. Like, there's some interesting things that you would not have thought of prior to reading this book, kind of thing.
Yeah, so. I'm definitely gonna read, go back and start reading more. I might actually read it all this time. I probably will.
Well, you can borrow my omnibus because I have that if you want.
Okay,
that's actually the best way to read it personally, unless you have the books already.
I think I have all the trades.
Oh, you have all of them?
I think so.
You have all the trades?
I think I have 1 through 10, at least.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm gonna need to borrow the last 4 years, because I don't. They didn't put it. This is stupid of DC. How about when the show's about 6 months before the show drops, you put out the first omnibus. Then when the show drops, how about you put out the second omnibus?
DC, we know you've been listening in because you finally took the time to bring back our. Oh, why am I blanking now?
What?
All our
bring back.
not I
Oh,
was gonna say
Milestone.
Image. Milestone, our Milestone comics.
Yes.
So we know you're listening, and what was there was another one they literally had happened to just put it out just before the series came out. And you're like, oh wow, that never happens. I can actually pick.
I don't
it up.
remember what it was, but I do remember.
But yeah, so you're listening to our podcast. You got somebody on the inside of DC listening to small podcasts, and so you're listening to us. Get on it.
Yeah.
If you want to make more money, and you have something of your property that is having some kind of tie into your comics coming out, it might be a good idea
to drop
the product.
I agree. I don't know why they do that. I'm looking up right now to see when it does come out because
and it's not like you don't know and can't get stuff in line. I go online and I'm like, whoa, what movie's coming out in 6 months to a year? Oh wow, Marvel has this slate. Oh, DC has this slate. You know it's coming.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Compendium 1 is out, and I'm not seeing anything for Compendium 2, so it's not even solicited. How dare they?
Wow.
How dare they?
Unacceptable.
It kind of is to me. But
anyway, I'm definitely going to...
Oh, it was Sweet Tooth. That's what they dropped.
Oh, that's right. It was Sweet Tooth. That's right.
So, yeah, they dropped the Compendium for that, but they can't drop the Why Last Man second one. So, I guess they figured we got half of it out there. It's fine.
They'll start on it. We'll get it.
But I will say that is, to me, the best way to read it because you don't have to go find the next book. You just continue reading. And you just lose yourself in the story because the story moves so fast because it's literally like 355 and him walking.
Oh, yeah. No,
and then things happen around them.
I think this took maybe like 45 minutes to read.
Right. And it was 5 issues. So normally on a non-Alan Moore or like Neil Gaiman book, it will take you anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to read an issue. Unless you're really fucking fast and not looking at anything.
Yeah.
But this book, yeah, like 5-10 minutes to read an issue, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, for real.
So, it's because there's no this is like also one of the newer books that doesn't have any inner dialogue, any thought bubbles, any of that shit.
True. No.
There's no narrator. It's just I'm literally talking or reading what the two people are saying to each other. There's no inner thought balloons or anything like that. So, and if there are sequences like that, it's always going to be a dream sequence. If he's having inner thoughts, it's because he's dreaming it and he's talking to then whoever's in the dream. So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know why DC or Marvel don't figure out how to put out books when their fucking shows drop or movies drop. Or like put things in prints, like Eternals is coming out, and good luck trying to find Eternals.
Yeah.
Other than like new ones that they're doing, but like,
But they're not basing
Jack
it on
Kirby
those
ones?
runs. They're
No.
exactly.
So it doesn't make any sense. I don't fucking understand them, but that's just. I guess I'm the idiot. I don't know. I'm in crazy land apparently. So I'm just a person who thought a company would want to make money on their products, or at least make them available to people. So, but no, it's not how it is. Anyway.
That being said, comic wise,
back to what we were saying before. So, John, what would you give this one? What would you think about it?
What
are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Okay. So honestly, I think this is a super solid start to a comic. Like I said, I was immediately hooked back in. I was like, oh man, I remember this. This is a cool start. And I know it gets better. But like even just reading this, like, oh, I definitely wanted to read more right away. I almost did just go and grab the next one to read it.
You wanted to,
yeah. So it was good. It's a solid start. It's got some fun action in it. It's well paced. There's not really anything that like brings it down. I liked a lot of the writing was very witty and funny. And the art is fantastic.
Yeah, so, I think that's why Yorick works good in this because he's an idiot, so he's funny every now and then.
Yeah, he and the monkey are the comic relief.
Yeah. I don't know about the monkey, but yeah.
I just mean as far as like the monkey pops up to like when it pulls off his mask, he's like talking and it's like, oh no,
that's why I'm saying the monkey is their conceit. Why would all these women?
It's the MacGuffin,
find out?
right?
Yeah.
You know what they call it?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He's the Deus Machina or whatever.
he's the blade that tells you where the thing is at the Death Star. Anyway,
there you go.
But yeah, solid. And that being said, since it's the first one, and like I said, I feel like it only does go up from here from what I recall. Either way, I'm excited to read more. I'm gonna give it a 7.
Cool. Yeah. For a first trade, I'm gonna give this one a 7 too. It is a really good start. It introduces a lot of characters, but you can pretty much remember all of them and follow them. They don't look the same, which is nice. you all like everybody's in such a different area, or they look different enough that the second they cut to them, like, oh, that's the Israeli girls. And then you cut back to, oh, that's this, I don't have to remember who this person is. The only person that you might have forgot about was Hero, but they do a good introduction where she says, I'm Hero, because they literally, what's your name, soldier, or whatever. And you see, like, she's cut her breast off, and then she says, I'm Hero. So
and now you'll have that going forward. So.
Exactly. So now you know, and now she's got her breast cut off. So it's kind of like, well, that's an interesting trait I will remember for the next time I see her. So, I mean, it's just like a lot of creative ideas. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with having politics in books. It's just, is that the story? No, not in this book. That should not be the story of your book, is you shoving, how can I fit my agenda into this book?
Yeah, unless you were writing a political
that's different
comic, then yeah.
Unless you're writing the history of Obama or something, or how Obama became president. That's different. That's a different comic. But like Martin Luther King's story or something. Like that's different than
that's
this.
That's a central theme of it.
If you're trying to write a story, please write a story, and then if you want to weave political message or whatever, you can have that. And I'll just go, okay, cool. That's what that guy thinks or whatever. But like, it's not. You don't have to agree with any of what the writer says in order to fall in line with the premise of this book
and enjoy it.
Yeah, because even if that, you're like I said, it would be like everybody's. It's a fairy tale land at the end of this. And Stephen King wrote a book with his son that was a little bit like that.
What book was it?
It was called Sleeping Beauties.
Oh, okay.
So like, it was like, what if all the women there was something happened to all the women and they go to sleep, but in their slumber, their dreamland, they're all in this dream world together. Uh-huh. They get like cocooned in real life, so their bodies get cocooned. And if you wake them up, they like freak the fuck out and kill you, and then they die. But they, if you don't disturb them, they just get cocooned, and then they all are in this one telepathic dream world, where like all the men are gone, and they're like, it's so much better.
It's so peaceful.
It's so much better without these other people here. And I'm like, I don't know. And then all the men are assholes, like in the book.
Yeah. So I assume if we had a world like that, it would be the closest thing would be like the Rick and Morty world, where all the women are over here and they're learning wonderful jobs, and then the men they play outside.
Yes. Yeah. There you go. But it's
they're only for reproductive purposes.
Yes. There you go. So and then you have that one torn special one who wants to dance. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand. Why is he different?
Why am I different, Dad?
Yeah. So I mean that's kind of like, not that book's even that bad, because there is a reason why it's in a dream world. So you can still suspend whatever politics or whatever you might be about for that. But like it's just that one's more heavier on it than this is. And this is just a good idea, like a sci-fi idea of what would happen, So I enjoy it. I'm going to give it a 7. You're going to give it a 7. What are we reading next week, John?
Let's do Conan again. We've been talking about it for a bit, and I know you think you're putting it on me like, oh, John doesn't want to read Conan. No, I want to read Conan. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Because the first one we read, I was like, oh man, this really is awesome. I see why you've been like talking this up all this time.
Yeah, I'm glad that you like it and are into Conan now, somewhat at least.
He's really calm on the microphone, but I can just see he's basically.
I'm ecstatic.
He's grinning from ear to ear.
Okay. Well, then if that's the case, we'll not read from the direct series of the Dark Horse run. We're gonna do Conan: The Book of Thoth, which is its own trade. It was its own mini-series that was going on during when Kurt Busiek was writing the Dark Horse series. So I've never read this.
Oh, cool.
So that's why I wanted to read it, because I'm like, oh, I've read all the Dark Horse stuff, whatever. So
cool. So this is new Conan for you too.
New Conan for me, as far as I didn't read that.
This series line.
But it's a book, the Book of Thoth, which is it's about the main bad guy Thoth, who's the main Conan bad guy. So we're gonna read that and check that one out. Also, if you guys didn't know, we have a coffee now, a KO-FI dash planes trains. Or is it .com/trains, planes, and comic books, all one word. So if you like our stuff and you want to support us, or if you just want a place where we're going to post everything at, so all the videos and everything, we're going to update it. Whenever we do videos, I'll put them on there, and the audio will also be on there. So you can look for the updates, but you can support us if you would like with a donation or we're setting up membership tiers. So the first one we have is just you can recommend us a book for $2 a month, and we will do that. And I bet if you threw a couple books at us, we could probably fit them in as well, especially at the beginning before we have like a bunch of people. But
yeah.
So go ahead and support that if you would like. And otherwise, you can email us at planestransandcomicbooks, all one word, at gmail.com.
Don't forget to check out our Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube channel for exclusive content.
Exclusive.
Check it out, guys. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, please do. And we'll see you on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.